we have two systems to show off. One that's launched in the current build, and one that is not yet, but will be shortly. The first one that is launched that you can mess with now is Social Combat. We'll see some of that. And then the new one is super experimental. Maybe experienced players can see even on the screen right now some new stuff. And we'll see that in action too.
Speaking of Social Combat, Arcades on Discord asks, is there a way to let lovers down gently so I don't need to crush them to the point where they need to be fired? You want to let them down gently from wanting to talk to you?
Be in love with you, maybe. Like a breakup?
I don't think there is a breakup option, other than just like... I think you'd have to emotionally mutilate them to not be their lover anymore. But you can say goodbye to them and walk away. They'll eventually miss you more and more, and that might be the closest thing.
That doesn't work in real life as a breakup strategy. Just
no,
do
not take any advice the game gives you in terms of navigating real life.
I've just realized the person I've immediately gone to talk to is our enemy. So that makes all this conversation much more funny.
You can turn it around. It can be done.
Or I can immediately demonstrate contempt.
Yeah, do it. Oh, that's I think that's the new enemy stuff. Yeah.
Only enemies get that, yeah.
Alvin said, so you said what hole they crawled out of, and then they say they've been shacked up with a new flame, and that you look a little lonely by contrast. Damn, dude, you got roasted.
Damn. See how it is. Should I try and hire an enemy? Is that like a ridiculous thing?
No, I did it in my last playthrough because the enemy was the only one willing to talk to me.
Actually, the security is terrible. I've already scouted that, so...
Probably going to calm down.
It's going to calm down first.
So this right here, what we're doing is a mode we call Chit Chat, which is simply finding things to say to someone you're talking to, and it will raise their or lower their stats, or raise or lower your stats. It's not necessarily combat in itself. It's just kind of managing stats, almost like
health. Kind of like positioning. If this was a physical fight, it's almost like you're trying to get the upper hand, trying to get yourself into a position where you can make your move.
Yeah.
And instead of doing it in physical space, you're doing it kind of emotionally.
Right. So it's sort of, we think about it as like scouting or prepping, or even sometimes teching up or putting on items and other kind of combat games, like, oh, I'm about to go into this fight, I should equip, +5 Sword of Burning or whatever. In this case, if you know the hiring loop well enough, you know that you're going to have to, I believe, raise their achievement, I think, here in a certain point. And it'll be clear once we start the actual combat.
Glad you said scouting too, because I don't think that's been mentioned much anywhere. But for example, Alvin Vaughn on the right of the screen there has 5 stats that have question marks after them, and no bar showing their current status. We don't know what his sense of achievement is, how autonomous he's feeling, if he's feeling intimate or private or any of those things yet. We haven't seen any indication. We do know a little bit about how he's feeling on those things where the bars are visible. But the way it works is if he changes any of those stats that are invisible right now, then we will know what those stats are. It's like you've kind of pushed him out of the zone he was in, and it's like, okay, now I know where he was. So it's almost like you have to kind of poke them. You have to poke his intimacy to know what his intimacy is, and it might damage the intimacy or help it in the process. But you have to move the needle for it to show up.
Alvin
just
Vaughn
said
says
later. He said later.
I think he wants to talk to someone else.
Yeah, don't hire your enemy anyway. That's a recipe for disaster.
Or good drama.
Or good drama. Here we go. Here's somebody to fight with. It's the Fixer.
John Wick says, it's going to be so funny when firearms and physical combat get implemented. People are going to be like, I fired a gun and it blew a hole in the hull of XX. Yes. Collateral damage, I think, is going to be important.
Yeah. We actually talk every once in a while about exactly what firearms are going to look like in a game like this, because obviously they're going to exist, but don't make a ton of sense on a spaceship. So who knows? I think in the Expanse they have like these gel bullets or something, like some type of collapsing.
I honestly feel like you could go either way. Like it's almost like real life in the sense that if you set rules for guns, it's not true that everybody's going to follow them anyway. So if you decide you want to be the most threatening terrorist or pirate in space, you're going to walk around with an armor-piercing slug gun, and people are going to listen to you when you point a rifle that can put a hole through their wall. So
That's true, yeah.
I'm
just
gonna
nobody's
try
going to like you.
offering to trade.
All right, so there's a guy in a dark corner, and we're offering to trade. And look, an objective has popped up at the top. It says, convince the fixer to give you access to the black market without making them too selfish or pestered. Selfish and pestered in red. And then we have over on our stat bars,
Michaela Huffman stats.
Michaela Huffman stats over here. She's the fixer. There's a bar down there on privacy, which she seems to be dangerously close to. And then one on altruism, which I guess is, which I know actually is connected over here to selfish. So we have to kind of talk with them and keep them out of those red zones, or else we lose the combat. And then over here in the Gambits, we have ways to kind of like our death blows, like to finish the combat. And if Josh will highlight one, we can see, like, for example, we could attempt to charm the fixer if we get their intimacy. They're very low, like we neg them, I suppose, into wanting to, into like, you know, trusting us. Or if it's very high, I guess they've fallen for us and they'll let us in. So that's sort of like a charm move. And over here on the other end, we have security. If we have it in that low zone, we've scared them enough to let us onto the black market. So those are our gambits, our sort of like paths to win this victory, our lose conditions and win conditions. And then we have all these new tools to do. We can crack our knuckles and glare, complement their appearance, along with all these special ones that come with our character, because they're observant, ambitious, etc. So
any of those that you click on, you'll see the preview kind of show you a rough idea of what's going to happen to you and them when you do it. Like their stat is probably going to go up in intimacy, but down a little bit in privacy. Same for you. It also will give you some notes at the bottom, like it requires ambitious as a personality trait for you to get this at all. Not always available means even if you have that personality trait, it may not always appear. Sometimes they're like you have to expend a social item in your inventory, like it's almost like a one-shot joke you can tell, or a one-shot story. You can use that story up, and it's usually a more powerful move, but you're limited to however many you've got stored up.
yeah, and
I'm just gonna.
so basically we have you're gonna fire out a flirt, yeah.
Oh, we got some intimacy.
There's a connection.
Now she's in the red zone here, so I'm curious with privacy. So I'm curious if you push on privacy too much, a little lower than this, she'll say get lost, I would guess. So intimacy might the flirt route might, I don't know which one lowers privacy more. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's threatening them or trying to hit on them.
Yeah, okay, we immediately got told to get lost. Michaela Huffland says Ursula Stream is a little too curious, tells them to get lost. Friendly actions leave.
So that was losing social combat. We have lost. That would be like getting knocked out in an RPG. So we're gonna come up with some cool lose graphics. Eventually, you are dead.
Hey-oh.
It's gonna be a giant like you died.
But you can try again. Her stats are gonna be all jacked up. So will yours. Like she's pestered again. So you can try, or you can kind of leave and give her some space until her privacy comes back up, or you can try to do some moves that raise her privacy, although there aren't many. It's sort of hard to talk somebody and raise their privacy.
Get compliment. Michaela Huffman says Ursula Stream is useless to them. Another piece of space trash shoved into a corner of the retrograde station that everyone is forced to know. It's really not in a good mood.
You made an impression.
So that's on altruism failure. First you failed with, if it makes you feel any better, first you failed with privacy and then you failed with altruism, so.
Better or worse? Who knows? Remulusan2 says, I remember I had that mission to seduce a scavenger, so I pulled all the info out of them and then I hired them and it was so weird. Our stats of our character less stable now.
Oh yeah, the honeypot mission. That's cool.
The stats should actually, well, I guess it depends on what you're comparing it to, but now they are more stable than they were a long time ago. But the one thing I think that we've changed recently is you're starting closer to the middle of the scale instead of perfectly good in everything,
Right.
which might be what you're noticing. And I remember just Remulison continues, I remember just forcing myself into everything since I had all the good-looking traits. Flirting repeatedly was a bit too effective, to be honest. I made my enemy friend and a lover. Also, the one-time stories are really weak. I think what we need to do for the repeating part, anyway, is we need to basically wear out a move. Like if you use it too much. And we've been talking about privacy as kind of like a stamina / endurance type metric. So like every move consumes a little bit of privacy and you basically have a limited number of moves before they kick you out. I still think we're all kind of on the same page with doing something like that.
Yeah, Rem is actually right on board in the chat here. Most of the time I notice privacy can only really rise when they are alone. Yeah, that's by design a little bit, and we're going to juice that design even further, as Dan just said, this idea that like you only have some set number of actions when you get into a social combat because of their privacy.
Yeah.
And eventually they're like, just, I need some space or whatever. Or they call you a piece of space trash. So this is another encounter Josh is going into now, which is when you have docking fees and you don't really want to pay them or don't have enough money, you can kind of chat up the...
smooth talk your way out of it.
The Port Authority, who has the little shoulder patches. So Josh is going to try that, I think.
Do you actually have a docking fee, Josh?
I think I do. Yeah. I haven't paid it yet. I can check in the cash, actually. Have I paid it yet? No.
I see it there.
You owe about $300, $400.
Parking in this place is crazy.
What I also did was I also picked up a little gig just so I could make a little bit of money on the side whilst I'm,
delivering a little vodka.
Oh, the vodka. That's what that vodka was for. Okay.
How much you gonna make?
They're good. Solid. What's 200?
All right. Turn her in.
Silver tier
that talk in the Discord chat about the spooky alien artifact that sucks all the oxygen out of the room. That was basically true for the first year of the game. There was a bug in the game that would instantaneously suck all the air out of every room.
Some other poor sap is trying to get the attention of the Port Authority here.
Now, as a British person, I'm going to wait in queue.
It's so British.
Oh, they're turning around to talk to me. Hey, let's see if we can make friends with this person, actually.
This person's not going to get off our docking fee, although we could hire him, yeah.
Yeah.
They're from Prokofiev.
Oh, that's
a hardcore criminal.
That is a hardcore criminal at the age of 20 years old.
He's just got in and then has immediately escaped. He's like artist of core. Like,
he certainly looks like a 1980s action hero who would escape from a prison with those long locks and eyebrows. He kind of looks like he'd be like a star in like an Eastern European action movie or something.
There's actually a question on Discord. John Wick was asking what the Strata is all about.
Yeah.
I don't think anything depends on it yet, but it's something that we have there so that we can make things depend on it later. For example, you may not be allowed to board certain stations without the appropriate kind of citizenship or visa. So like we are a K-Leg permanent resident. William Wyatt was a Prokofiev resident. We're basically both authorized to be in these places, but we're not citizens. In fact, I don't think you can be a citizen of Kaleg. There isn't citizenship. But like Mars, for example, there may be like Tharsis citizen, Tharsis permanent resident, which is like a visa holder or a green card holder, and then illegal, which is like they're working under the table and off the radar.
Oscar Atkinson seems like a real jokester here. Big glasses doing tricks.
Showing up to work with the big 1000 glasses. This is your guy.
This guy's gonna let you off.
Acquaintance.
I don't think you can hire this guy though.
No.
You butter him up before you ask to be.
Says
Oh, he's. I was gonna say you don't know anything about his status, do you?
No, he's blank.
Maybe I'll going in blind. This is not how you're supposed to do the conversation, but I'm going to address the. Ask Rack tells Ursula true that they have seen too many missions lately. They come back late.
Damn.
And just
He's at capacity. You're getting owned.
good luck. Last game where I just immediately turning people into it's just all backfiring. It's run,
Yeah.
Quick,
Someone
talk to
says
me.
that floor has a lot of blood, so it's not blood necessarily. I suppose it could be, but it is a preview of our new feature that you'll see much more once we actually start getting on derelicts here shortly. K-Leg is a little bit more well tended to than most of the derelicts we're about to see. Iron Rat Gauge says, any plans for the criminal or pirate options soon? And then also, secondarily, I'd like some money dumps. One good find feels like it kills all the momentum of this. Oh yeah, so that'll come up here shortly. Oh, found freight with like 5 EVAs. Time to quit. Yes, totally. This new patch we're working on is all about that pacing, but might solve it in ways you might not expect. In terms of the criminal and the pirate options, we don't. That's not in our launch MVP right now. I think you'll be able to RP as a criminal or a pirate, but we're thinking about changing how we're doing starting positions.
Yeah, the starting career thing, what I originally pictured was you'll just be able to start out in a variety of starting scenarios and places and careers. And I think what we're finding is that we are going to work on the Shipbreaker K-Leg starting scenario, get that to a point where it feels like it's working and complete, and go through the stuff on the roadmap first, like being able to fly to other stations, combat, the inventory overhaul, the medical overhaul, stuff like that. And then that'll bring us pretty close to 1.0 launch. And then there's always room for us to then go back and say, okay, well, what if you're a private investigator instead of a shipbreaker? What if you're a miner? What if you're a law enforcement officer? So there's other ways for us to kind of play this game, but the first kind of kick at the can is going to be, what's it like scrapping ships and kind of like, I don't know what you want to call it. I guess a scavenger, space scavenger.
Yeah, and a lot of that is also because we have tailored this pretty closely to a new player starting, and the idea of like kind of tutorializing stuff in other locations is just a bit of an uphill battle, and like it seems better just to make this be like the starting area for everyone.
Funnel everybody, every new person starts through this, and then like maybe you can unlock alternate starting positions at some later day.
Yeah. That's not to say you can't fly over to Venus and just become a pirate because you want to. Go for it. But you have humble beginnings.
Don't fly there yet. It's not worth the trip.
Yeah, don't go right now, but soon. Yes, gameplay is going to be refined. I want a way to dispose of bodies or automatic body disposal on stations. Rim, I don't even know how you're killing people right now. Since I had quite a few people just die on my station. Oh, I see. That'd be an interesting job. Just have somebody on K-Leg who's just like the grave digger, just dragging bodies around.
Just sort of cleanup.
Managed to get into the basically instead of using the social combat, I managed to turn them into a lover, and then they were just like, yeah, you can trade with me.
That's why her eyes opened up the way it did. I was kind of glancing over, and she really lit up all of a sudden.
Yeah, we have some workarounds on. Oh, the black EVA suit's for sale. What? That's tight, dude.
I'd buy that, but that would be all my money. The highest. I've got all this stuff. I can't sell it because I want it.
Go get a
everyone's life.
Go get a salvage license for $5,000 and then sell those regulators to back to OKLG, and then you could make some money that way.
Maybe look at the price. Ooh, can you look at the prices? I don't know if you can before you buy the license.
Not for me. No, I don't.
There's a question on Twitch. Can they see the traits for Ursula Stream?
Oh yeah.
So Ursula Stream.
Just to know what we're working with.
Impact, immunosuppressed, micro G hypovolemic, slow metabolism, is unfit, fragile, feeble, insomniac, arrogant, heliophobic, and they're sort of negative ones. And then the good ones, charismatic, diligent, ambitious, and observant. So
I've seen a couple people ask, and this would be a good time to say it. Basically, the first 8 of those things there, all the way from visual impaired to insomniac, everybody starts with that because you grew up in microgravity and not on Earth. So people are wondering why they start with those things. It's because you grew up in 0G space and your body is a mess. But you can buy those off in the self-care kiosk by trading positives for negatives.
Rem asks, will the contact level affect the social combat, like being a best bud with a cop or being a couple with a fixer? Yes, actually. Right now, there's an entire sort of multi-branch conversation you can have if a cop pulls you over and you're friends with them, where they're like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Like, and it can end with them like giving you some stuff they confiscated, you know? Like they're like, hey, this was used in some evidence in a trial, but I don't need it anymore. Do you want this? And you're like, yeah. So we imagine stuff like that. And in the case of what just happened, he skipped social combat completely because of the relationship he had with the fixer. So, yeah, if you become buds with all the cops, they pull you over, they won't charge you.
You can have those relationships as a result of your backstory, career stuff. Like we've set it up so that the criminal contact you have on K-Leg turns out to be the fixer. And because of that, you bypass the whole like credentialism conversation, and he just goes, "Oh, hey, I know you. Come on over here. Is where I got the stuff."
That toilet looks jacked up.
pretty messed up.
I've seen a lot of abuse.
One toilet on OKLG. No, there's more than that.
Damn, there's a lot of people here by the ship.
Remulison says, would love some special interactions and earned traits. I'm still not sure where I stand on the character growth question, because one thing that I didn't do in Neo Scavenger was give you the ability to gain new skills. You could gain some sort of one-off traits that are special. I could see that being different here. Like, there's probably room for like training up on a skill at least to basic levels if you didn't have it, or gaining a personality trait as a result of something that happens. But at the moment, I think we want to focus on making what you already have work before we start looking into getting you changing those things.
Yeah, Coach exactly right. Getting Eagle Eye after getting the surgery in Neo Scav. Yeah, like that's a deep game thing you can do.
Usually the answer to any question is, will you do this, is I would love to do this. The list of I would love to do is extremely long. But the roadmap that we have published, in fact, I'll post the link in a second here in case anybody hasn't seen it. That's what we figure we are able to do in approximately a year's time from now. With the idea towards we can't work on this game forever. So let's decide on the first the first batch of things we know we can do that are going to be included in the game, and then anything beyond that is bonus. But at least we've got a plan for kind of like the minimum minimum that people should have as part of the game. I'm going to grab that link though, because I know some people still haven't seen it.
And we've stuck to it quite closely since we published it, and we plan to. I mean, we have a publisher now, so we can't really goof around. I mean, we can goof around, but we're pretty. We like that roadmap.
We're allowed to goof around. I've been
not you,
so
man.
serious this whole time.
Crusoe says that grime is gorgeous. Thank you, Josh.
I have just posted a link to the roadmap in both Twitch and Discord if anybody wants it.
Speaking of the roadmap, we're on the wear and tear patch.
09.
09. So that's what that grime is there, and it is a shader, custom shader, programmed by Josh like last week. So we'll see more of it in action once we get on Derelicts, and I won't spoil it too much, but
you just can't wait to talk about it though. You're like itching.
I know. Should we wait? Should we wait till he gets on a Derelict?
I love that cooler. That air conditioner looks just like the kind of air conditioner you'd find in the subway in New York.
Yes, zoom in on it. Just
like there's a centimeter of dust and like old fingernails on top of it.
Yeah, just nasty.
If you let it too hard, it'll just like collapse into dust.
Yeah, there's a very carefully balanced pile of dust that will fall on you and go in your lungs if you nudge it at all.
Cyrus says, if you couldn't goof around, I wouldn't have been hired. That's true, Cyrus. We take goofing around very seriously.
Yeah, speaking of Cyrus's latest edition, you'll probably see if we go to any of the graffiti-covered kiosks. I think we did twice already. So those are Cyrus's tags, his experienced tagging hand.
They told you couldn't. That you told you that was never going to be a skill you can make money with, Cyrus. And look at you now.
A legitimate paid job. Yeah. Iron Rat Gauge says, I hope Splat keeps reviewing the game with some major updates on and off. Also, thank you for the roadmap. Yeah, Splat did us a major service. Would have been December or early January, by taking a fresh look after launch to see what's changed, and we got a ton of new attention then. Thankfully, it was right after we did a bunch of patch stuff, because I think the game was in a better state then. Still had some bugs though, which he called out. And hopefully the next time he comes back, if he comes back, he'll be impressed once again. So yeah, thanks, Splat.
We're probably, what are we trying to hire Christian here?
Yeah.
Christian.
What are the things I need to be getting up here? So I can just strong. I
believe the stats for hiring are achievement, autonomy, security, and respect. No, wait, not achievement, self-worth. Those are the 4 that need to be like pretty good.
Hey,
you're tracking pretty well here. Whoa, just like fireworks are going off. We're looking at Christian Mora's stat bars. We can see them kind of update in real time every time Josh chooses a move.
I don't remember now what the fail conditions are for hiring, but I do think one of them might be privacy. So that's the one I'd be worried about. If you scout too much, then he'll be pestered before you even get into the combat.
Go subject drops agrees. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, privacy is no big deal. That's good. So up there we have an objective box. So now that lets us know we're in combat again. We now see those red bars again.
So far, we're in good shape, except we don't know what his security level is. He's not like gaping mouth open, so he's probably not terrified. That's the other thing, is their facial expressions will track their mood, but it's a very crude indicator. So if you don't know anything with the stat bars yet, you can usually look at their face, and we can tell just by looking at him, he's not in a great mood, but he's not in a terrible mood.
Hey, right, okay. A pretty good mood to hire, actually. Probably. Hover
the gambit. Hover the gambit, and it'll tell you exactly what you need.
I don't autonomy anything, so I'm gonna go the the safe route and conversation going. And this is something about this system as well, is that you have all these moves, but you can't always use them. You're going through like threads of the conversation where you break off. You're talking about something you can't always
steer
do
too forcefully.
Yeah.
It's just we're trying to model that after like a real conversational flow where if you like just suddenly go off on not even a tangent, you're just like hard stopping the line of conversation and switching to something else. They'll just be like, all right, I don't know why you did that.
Right. Hover basic job offer. Yeah. So we'll see here the green bars are what we're looking for. And in this case, there's 4 of them. And then he seems to be in all of them, which is what we need.
Which you don't have to be in all 4 though, right? Like the green, any one of the green is fine.
No, in this case, it is all 4 actually.
It is all 4? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this should work. Should be. I mean, should be. Hey, nice. We got a guy.
They are officially crew. Welcome aboard. They've got a little arm patch floating above their head now. Under the hammer by their head, there's a 1 bar because they're low rank, and you have 4 bars because you are high rank.
Let's buy our boy Christian's a pressure suit before we get going. Yeah? You should be able to buy one at the normal scrap store. Yeah, right
What
there.
do I have? I've got a pressure suit and a helmet and a drill.
That's yours, though.
So I'm thinking, what more do I need? So I need 1 more of each.
Well, you could do a laser torch and a drill, or you could do a drill and this new item, the GOT friction stir welder. If you don't want him to have a $10,000 drill. I don't know how much you like, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's getting the cheap tools. You got to start get the apprentices off with the the back, so that when they get stuff, they appreciate it.
Let's get some questions. Will you do something about ruining someone with a job offer? I once made a lady panic and cry because I kept lowering the death pay and the salary. Now, was this in real life or in our game?
I think there are laws against that, aren't there? No, I think it's everybody will do a little bit of self-care in your absence. They may or may not succeed, though, and if other people bother them, it could get better or worse. But time heals all wounds, as they say, and it's true in this game. So you could always just give them some time and space, and maybe that'll help. But you can force certain moods to be better. Well, I won't say force, but if you're like a regular RPG combat, if you're good enough with the combat system, you can kind of nudge them back up. But usually privacy is always going down every move you make, so bear that in mind.
Hey, now they're doing something that we are trying with this sort of thing. And they're starting to have a conversation amongst themselves almost now. Because people are getting really annoyed at the people saying moves.
Uh-oh.
They are not happy with this hire. Not going well. Crusoe asks, what is the stir welder? Well, let's switch over to Christian here and pick up some tools.
So we did just add that item in. It won't be in any builds on Steam until we drop the 09 update. But the stir welder is just a low, I don't want to say low quality, but it's just a lower efficiency tool for welding things. And it's meant as kind of like starter gear, because the one that's in the game now is a $10,000 laser torch, which can basically do anything. It can weld, it can solder, it can cut. This stir welder is basically just kind of like a drill that massages metal together. They use it in some sort of industrial applications here on Earth. And it's one of the more promising ones for space because it doesn't require like acetylene or oxygen or flame. It's just friction. So it's a little safer to use and possible to use in a vacuum.
So if you like imagine like a rubber spinning really fast and like on top of metal, it'll heat it up enough that I think
it's actually a metal bit at the end, but yeah, like it's like almost like a specialized drill, I guess, if you want to think of it like that, or like a router or something.
Yeah, Hash has it. He says, first time chat here from Hash says, stir welding is basically spinning a piece of metal against the two pieces you want to join, and friction heats it up to the point that it fuses. So there you go. Thanks,
Yeah.
Hash. What's your job, dude? How do you know about stir welding? Are you still what, stir welder?
He's a shipbreaker.
Let's see what our crew is doing, because this is a preview of what we're about to do on this.
So this is just, he's been really helpful actually. He's undamaging the ship.
Undamaging is a placeholder word for everybody here, but especially for Naiba. that word is going to change to something else because we have kind of like a quick and dirty procedural damage on everything, and we needed a way to remove that, so we just called it undamaging.
Yeah, so this is our new system here, and it's getting at what we were talking about with the new game loop, which is essentially that every item now every single item in the game now has a percentage damage on it that's reflected here with this shader, as well as if you have a more advanced tool, or in this case, it's like a debugging tool that Josh, you can pull up if you want, the X key thing, and you can see how close everything is before it's like about to break. So now there's just way more variability in ships. You can get onto a ship and it could just be like, it could have all the parts you need, but maybe some of them are in really bad condition and are coming up towards breaking in particular ways. So even our starting ship here, you can see like one of the thrusters is pretty good, but the other one that Christian's working on now is pretty jacked up. But his AI is just all about going around and getting that done right now. I'm not sure why he has his helmet on, but hey, go for it, buddy.
You're less likely to talk to him with a helmet on.
That's good. Yeah, so this ship is looking okay, but you'll get on some of these derelicts and they'll just be absolutely trashed. Not just like because they have floors with holes in them like you've seen, or trash on the ground or any of that, but just because the damage algorithm has gone through and jumped things up.
What Cyrus put in the chat, does this mean it hurts? Yes, exactly. You know what we might actually call healing and stuff. That might be the internal name that we use.
Unbreak my heart.
Unbreak my leg.
Iron Rat Rage says, "Ooh, this makes me want to consider hiring people."
Exactly.
Yay! That's exactly what we're doing.
Exactly. We're like, we got to have a reason to have this annoying ass dude on my ship.
Why am I babysitting all of these people? All right.
And so
you see the it's that is sort of an effect of the damage. We don't just want it to have visual like grime, so to sometimes affect how things work, and some of the external lights as well. You can see flashing a bit.
Yeah, we haven't hooked up all of the pieces yet, but I think we've sort of brainstormed all kinds of things that these pieces can do as they get more and more damaged. So, for example, the thruster we talked about, what if it didn't work when you tried to use it, like the thruster just stopped, or if it was just always on until you fixed it? Or what if the heater or cooler was just, again, not working or always on, or like what if they made distinct noises when they were in a broken mode? So there's a lot we could do here. It's probably more than we could possibly cover, but we're going to try and at least add some more variety.
Yeah, so that answers your question, Crusoe. Will damaged parts function differently, or is it binary between working and not working? It's actually, we're thinking about it as more of a threshold. So like one example would be your RCS intake regulator might spew a little bit of N2, once it's approaching the damage state, because it's a 100-point scale, right? So as it's approaching or maybe getting more and more damage, it'll spew more and more gas to the point where it's like, if it's at 99, it's like mostly spewing gas, and it's like not much of an intake regulator at all. That makes sense.
Yeah, in a way, you can think of the way the walls and floors previously worked as kind of a basic version of that, because they already did this even in old versions of the game. They had a damage scale that went from 0 damage all the way up to 100% damage, And as soon as it hit 100% damage, it turned into broken wall. And that's when it started leaking air out. And so like we may end up doing a similar thing now where all of these parts, they're like getting progressively more and more worn out until they reach a breaking point, and then the broken version does whatever a broken version does.
Right. Right now, the only one that really works like that is the nav station, I think. Is that right? Or
Yeah,
maybe
I'd say
not.
the walls, the floors, and the nav station and the wall lights are probably the ones that are mechanically different when they're in broken states.
Oh yeah, the wall light's a perfect example because it flickers more, right? The more damaged it is. Isn't that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, they all do, but the wall light is actually lighting up your room, and if it's mostly broken, then you're mostly not getting light in your room. So
Right. Like you could there we can do the example here, right? So he's standing right next to a flickering light. You can see it. Do you want to go repair that? Josh?
I
Show
don't
him.
do work. Damn it.
make Christian do it.
you told him he could goof off. He's just doing whatever he wants.
All right, so it's flickering, right? But as we undamage it, or eventually this will be called whatever, restore or refurbish, whatever word we go with, but you can see the bars going up slowly in this case.
Oh, and we'll get into that maybe after this, which is the rate of progress is varied now.
Dad tries to is in the chat. Look at this. Hey, buddy.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get that one. I was just gonna say that it looked like Dad tries to had a question there. So
I'll read it. You answer it. Notice that uninstalling a sink takes about the same amount of time as the nuclear reactor. That is.
Oh,
is that,
well, coincidentally, we were just about to get into that.
Is that just my perception, or are there plans to have difficulty for installing and uninstalling items?
Yeah, so O9 turns all of that upside down. And you kind of got a sense of it just watching Ursula do that light. So we changed all of the installation, uninstallation, and repair times to be a little bit more item relevant now. So like getting a canister of N2 uninstalled from the floor might only take like 1 or 2 cycles of your progress bar. Getting a reactor will take many, many, many cycles. But on top of that, that's just like an untrained person with the most basic tools will see those differences. If you have skills in the tools, that rate will go up. Similarly, if you have better tools, that rate will go up. So it's possible that a skilled person with good tools can uninstall like even the most complicated things quite quickly. And because I'm sure it'll come up, there's at least one case of missing skills in the game right now, which is electronic skills. And we're looking to fix that for O9 because uninstalling electronic stuff or repairing that currently takes forever because there's no way to get that skill with Career Kiosk.
Fair enough.
What are you looking at?
I found it on this sort of looking.
Oh, cool.
Like,
I didn't know you could change your appearance again. That's cool.
Only parts of it, like your hair and your, I think, glasses and things that you could change on the fly.
Yeah, look at this ship. It's pretty good. There's this gay suit, like, you know, sitting there at the entrance.
Yeah, it'll probably look pretty bad in paper doll view, but in terms of the damage right now, but it looked great on the ground there.
Yeah, the shader needs a little bit of work in the the paper doll. Everyone just ignore how that looks right now. Imagine it's like torn up and looks really cool, and yeah.
I don't know if that's an improvement or a step back from what it used to look like when it was that broken in our test build. That sort of wispy strands of orange and black draped over your body.
Yeah. I mean, he has a jumpsuit on. Maybe he can, Josh, you can show it, but I don't know if it's damaged. So all this stuff that looks jacked up is jacked up. So that's the cool thing about this shader that I've been really impressed with how quickly Josh spun it up. Is just this is not just a cosmetic feature. Like anything that looks damaged is damaged. And including these floors that look different from each other and maybe, but even though they might have the same level of damage, right? Like those two floors next to each other look relatively, they look different, but they're going to have the same level of damage, and so everyone's game will look different and stuff. And we haven't spent a lot of time changing what this damage looks like, but eventually we will, and so it won't all just look like red splotches or gray splotches. And we're working on a system to make it like actually have like chunks out of it and stuff like that. Will some damage make it impossible to install / uninstall it, like if it's too dented to fit right? That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think the way it works right now, in 08, the version you guys already have on Steam, if it's damaged, you can't uninstall it. You can either repair it or you can scrap it, which I'm okay with that approach, but we'll have to kind of see if we want to take that a step further here and let you uninstall a broken thing. Like maybe you can and it falls into pieces, or like there's a couple different ways we could do it. But I think that's a good point. Like sometimes an even functioning item just won't be installable. Like let's say your air pump, you can't install it because it's not shaped right anymore, even though it might still work. So we'll have to think about that. I meant to ask Josh, did you remember to pack your jumper jack cables?
I did bring a couple of jumper jack cables this time. I've got 3
so that's
right
another
now.
thing we're playing around with is sort of like emergency cabling that you can bridge the gap with things without having to go through all the trouble of installing a full-on conduit. But you'll also find some people have already done that to keep their ship, like the derelicts have already got jumper jacks bridging gaps.
I think this one does, like
Yeah,
kind of to the
there's
I see a couple, yeah.
Can you repair loose items? Yes, you can. You can repair items in your inventory. You can repair, yeah.
The toolkits are a little bit up because of the shit I've been working on. But this crowbar is getting fixed up in my right now. Yeah, there's definitely a few things in this.
Everything is fixable.
And when things break, I don't know if this was clear, but they break into pieces, which is sort of true now when you scrap something. But it opens up these kind of interesting scenarios where, like, if you didn't spend some time, working on your thrusters, for example, before you got going, like it could just shatter while you're flying, and now you just don't have a thruster. Like it's gone.
Yeah, actually, it's worth maybe talking a bit about how that damage model is going to work. So we have, I think, at least 3 damage models working right now. The first one is over time, everything on your ship, or just about everything on your ship, is very slowly wearing down. And that's meant to reflect like heat and cooling cycles of being in and out of the sunlight, radiation exposure in space, just general like off-gassing and embrittalization of materials. Like over time, hundreds of years, metal will turn to nothing. That is so slow, however, that you shouldn't really notice it too perceptibly while you play. But then on top of that, as you use the ship, so if you're maneuvering the ship, certain parts of your ship are going to go under a lot of strain and they're going to damage faster. So things like the RCS system, pieces of the hull, those are going to wear down a little bit faster just as a result of any maneuver you do. But if you're just coasting, you should be fine. And then any object that, like a door or something that you're walking through, that's getting damaged per use. Similarly, every tool that you're repairing with is getting damaged per use. So it's like everything is kind of wearing down according to how much it's being used. And then we'll have to kind of tweak probably lifetimes for these so that they make sense. But our initial kick at the can drove Naiba crazy because everything was turning to dust in his hands.
Total nightmare.
Naiba gets to experience all the most fucked builds and then comes back to us and tells us why.
He's our dog food tester.
And we fix it. That's basically the way the whole dev process works. Let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of why we why we're pursuing this patch, because we were really weirdly, this was one we were just very interested in for a long time, and even right when we started working on it, we were stoked about it. And it seems kind of weird, right? Because it's like stoked about just like trash everywhere, but I think from the beginning, and Dan, you could speak more to this, like the idea of like being in a junkyard and finding the kind of like diamond in the rough has been the core of this game. And in reality, that doesn't just look like you're in a junkyard and you find a car that has all the right parts, right? It's more like it would require someone who sees the potential under the rust or under the dirt, or and even when you get that car fixed up, it's always going to be like this ongoing labor of love of you like fixing this thing, and it's never going to be fully done kind of a deal. And those were all the kind of like emotional like hits we were thinking about when designing these systems. It's just like
every sci-fi like dream ship has pretty much been a piece of junk. Like for me anyway, they're always a work in progress, hot rod, full of like failing parts and danger. But it's kind of like a romantic relationship you have with the ship, kind of keeping it in working order, and it can do things maybe that a bog standard ship couldn't. You know, you've tweaked it to your personal tastes, and it's your ship. It's personal expression for you.
Yeah, the whole like she don't look like much, but she's fast kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And once we layer all these systems on, I mean, this is only the beginning, but it really will be a thing where it's very, very hard to have like a quote unquote perfect and finished ship. You know, it'll just be like different. It'll just be in different stages of its life cycle. And then, you know, we love this idea of like somebody having like a really busted up and dirty ship, but it still is but it can still fly well, you know, because of, you know, which components are fixed. Like a filthy car could still like burn rubber, you know. Taco Bell everywhere.
Oh, I see Kevin's in the chat and he's asking when we're going to do NFTs. Funny story.
God.
I was saying we should have done an NFT thing for April Fools, but I think enough people with sense were like, no, because people might actually believe it, and we're not doing NFTs.
We vetoed the idea. We were, there was the joke was just too close to home, because we were gonna do an entire like April Fools.
Too plausible.
We're doing an NFTs thing, but I can speak for myself. I hate NFTs so much that the joke didn't even land in my heart. I was like, I can't do this. Like it would kill me. You know, no smoke with people who like NFTs, whatever. But
it looks like the Factorio guys did it anyway, so
okay.
The joke did not go unsaid. Somebody did it.
Good. All right.
Now we can go see if Factorio lives or dies by that decision.
Would there be a way, this is Banana Mammal, first time chat. What's up, Banana Mammal? Would there be a way to increase inventory space, at least for crates?
Now, it's funny you say that, because I've seen on the Discord that someone has made a crate mod.
Do you want to hit pause and show off? We forgot to do that. The mod options screen.
Oh yeah, that's new too.
So for anyone who hasn't seen it, 08 on Steam now has this new modding and files stuff. And basically the bottom section of the screen there will show you all of the mods that the game has loaded and in which order, or if there was a problem loading them. And then in the top, it's all of the places to find relevant things to the game, like the mods themselves, the manuals, saves, and so on. And then minor, but there's another thing on, I think, the interface page of this option screen. Yeah, so you can now change units. People asked, and I think I was just in there anyway, and I did it.
We still won't let you have Fahrenheit there.
No,
it will or won't?
It won't.
No, it won't. Yeah.
The Fahrenheit heads are going nuts.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to, and I'm an American, and I did not put Fahrenheit in there. So, but I did put the American date format. So, I guess I'm half guilty.
In terms of the question of whether you'll be able to increase inventory space, if you check the roadmap, we have an entire patch that's actually coming up relatively soon, maybe the next one, I can't remember, but that is all about inventory, and it's going to include stuff like, being able to slap a backpack on your. Well, first of all, you're not just going to be able to
Neo
have
Scavenger inventory. Basically.
Yeah, basically it's Neo Scavenger, where it's not just like some magical box you have, but an actual item. And I imagine at that time we might also start thinking about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but like putting more detailed inventory in the ship itself instead of just crates lying around. I
think we can. Yeah, I mean that's a very common thing in even modern astronautical vehicles. Like you have the space station has basically every open surface that's not covered in equipment is a door to a compartment.
Right.
So I think we could do that, and it makes sense. Certainly for organization.
We got this weird boat building fetish in BBG where we're like kind of like looking at boats, and for me, one of the things that is always so cool about when you go below deck in a boat is how there's just like every single space is used for storage, if not something else, Yeah. And so, building some cabinets into a wall that can then be inventory is probably.
Don't waste your space.
Yeah, probably something we'll consider. Also in that inventory patch, there's going to be no more just putting a nuclear reactor in your pocket. Like there's going to be hauling and dragging and probably some dollies or something or whatever. You certainly won't be able to walk around as Josh is now, carrying around a refrigerator, an air pump.
Huge.
So that actually leads into maybe two questions from chat. One from Remulison in Twitch asking, will you componentize objects more so there will be more jury rigging potential? I think the plan is for some things to become more componentized, other things to be more self-contained. And the best example so far is the reactor, which currently does everything the reactor needs to do, but in reality should be like a lot of different pieces that if they're not in place, you can't run the reactor completely. For example, like the cooling system for it and the field coil generators and the pellet feeder, like those are all substantial pieces of equipment that should probably just bolt on to the sides of the reactor. So that may be how we componentize things. I don't know how many are going to be like that, but it's on our minds. Another question from Rem in Discord, will highly skilled engineers be able to repair things others can't? I think the rule of thumb we're going to go with is everybody can repair everything at some speed. So like, yes, even an unskilled person could repair the reactor. Although, I was going to say, because otherwise you're going to get stuck and then the game will be over and that might not be fun. And like anybody could start unscrewing pieces of a reactor and maybe get it right if they had, enough time. Or they could get it drastically wrong. Maybe that's what we'll do. Like if it's unskilled, it might make more sense. Like you could actually do it wrong.
Yeah, break it or you blow up.
I wouldn't want to hard stop somebody's game just because they didn't have the right skill though. That said though, it just occurred to me the tools already do that. They stop you from repairing something, but maybe we can get around that by letting you jury rig tools together. Which makes a lot more sense.
We haven't even talked about tools yet, but like all this undamaging that's being done requires tools, and right now we have tools for like screw driving, and we have tools for cutting, and we have tools for welding, and I think possibly that's it. But by the time this patch hits, there's definitely going to be a strong right tool for the right job type thing going on. So it's like you're not
possibly even like these are my tools. It took me forever to get this toolbox together, and like that could be kind of cool in itself. You have like the best tools in the system from all the best manufacturers.
Right. Yeah. So it's not like you're going to be using your welder on your jumpsuit. You're going to have to use
mending kits or something.
Yeah, I don't know what in the case of a jumpsuit.
Your friction drill.
Yeah.
Just massage that thing back together. Lord Kevin asks, will there be a system of using items that are nearby without the need of accessing inventory? I think, unless I'm misinterpreting, I think it kind of does that now. So you don't have to be equipping the tool for it to be used in an interaction. You just have to have it in your inventory somewhere. And then if you don't have the item in your inventory and you tell them to do something requiring that item, the AI will usually go fetch the item first and then go do it. Now, I will say it's not the most efficient AI pathfinding. They will frequently go all the way across the ship, get a tool, and come all the way back, and then go all the way back again to get something else. And I don't know if I'm smart enough to fix that, but I'm aware of it anyway.
If
tools are just lying nearby. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I could see why it would make sense. And maybe it's doable just by doing like a distance line of sight check. I'll have to think about that. It honestly hasn't come up yet. Like I haven't been in a situation where it's like, I don't have enough tools to do this job already in my pocket. But I guess when we limit the inventory, this could become sort of we'll be forced to answer that question.
Rousseau says, personal tools, so awesome, Phillips versus flathead screwdrivers. Well, this is interesting and something I learned this week from Dan, which is that in space astronaut, in astronautics, is that the word? Anyway, they use...
I'll accept it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'll take it.
They use not a Phillips or a flathead, they use something called a Mortorque head, which is a sort of 3D kind of like ninja star looking shape that's supposed to strip fewer screw heads or whatever. Yes. Yeah. Just so you don't, imagine you're like halfway to Mars and you strip a fucking screw. That would be bad. So Mortorque is a lot of what these components use. And actually, if you go to the nav station and look at it, you can see a Mortorque. Yeah, those are Mortorque heads in the corners of the nav station there. See how they kind of look like ninja stars. So that was a cool thing for me to learn.
Yeah, we talked about like, do we want to get as granular as you have like different drill bits, and then your drill could have like an incomplete set of drill bits. Initially the answer was, wow, that's really complicated, we probably won't do that. But then we thought of some ways that we might be able to do it without doing a ton of extra work. So it's possible, like when your drill breaks, instead of just becoming unfunctional, like maybe it breaks one of the bit heads that it had, and now until you find the replacement for it, it can't do that particular bit anymore. I think that's doable, but like I said before, kind of the problem we're running into now is we've opened Pandora's box in terms of all of these things we could do now. Can we really handle them all? Like, there's only three of us, really. Three, and Naiba's putting part-time on this, so it's a lot of work for a small team to handle. I think we'll have to see.
Yeah, and there's not, especially with this patch, you guys are all hardcore players, but we're adding complexity to it and granularity to an already pretty complex experience. So there is a limit to how much of that we can ask players to kind of like understand. That being said, it is BBG, and so you can expect some level of like hyper detailed granularity in the experience. But is it really that fun if your drill bit breaks all the time and you got to find the right drill bit? Like, maybe. Sometimes it might be too much. So that's just the balancing act of making games, though.
Yeah, usually play it by ear, really.
Yeah. The tendency for us is to go insanely detailed and then scale back a bit, basically.
And then have a crisis of confidence.
Yeah.
Josh was just showing off the parallax background stuff, which is also new, I think. It wasn't entirely new. It kind of existed before, but build 0.8 introduced parallax backgrounds, which they change based on where you are, and even modders could change that stuff if they wanted. And so we have like flat regolith background on K-Leg when you're basically landed on the surface of the asteroid. But out here in the boneyard, it's a field of stars and then like debris kind of flowing by at different speeds. And then once you get far enough away from that, it's just space. There's nothing but stars. And we can hopefully do that to kind of distinguish the various regions you'll be flying through later on in the game when you're out of the K-Leg region into like, near space to Jupiter or like in orbit of a planet or outside Hongdao orbital. There's lots of, I think lots of visual variety we can add with that system.
Yeah, you can even see like a big, like hulking split ship in the background sometimes if you load the right save or whatever.
It never comes up when I want it to, but it's there.
It's always cool when you see it.
Will there be an in-game manual like way to know what to prioritize repairing and what can go wrong when things break, or is that just learned from player experience? Come to think of it, no, there's kind of like your first derelict primer manual that Corey wrote, and it's kind of like these are the steps you need to go through to basically bring a ship online, which in some ways is kind of a bit of like a primer on how to survive. These are the things you want to deal with first. But then like an emergency kind of checklist, I don't think there's anything like that yet.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, depending on what the dev cycle looks like, I'll write more manuals. It's something I really enjoyed doing and can do relatively quickly in comparison to this other work that I do. But again, it'll just be a matter of like, is that the most important thing for us? I do know we're really attached to the idea of having a like catalog sort of once we start adding more items. Like we do want this thing that you can open up and just see all the possible items in the game and maybe their general price and just something to flip through when you're on long trips and be like, oh man, I'd love to afford that one day,
Kick your feet up on the dashboard and page through the Auto Part magazine.
Yeah, so probably almost certainly we'll have something like that, but in terms of other kinds of manuals, I guess we'll just see what. I mean, yes, we will have other manuals, but who knows which ones, I guess. I love writing a damn manual. I don't care if you guys don't read them. I read them.
I love the manual too. Let's see. There was asteroid mining ? Yes. We've actually talked about that a couple times now because it seems weirdly possible with all the pieces we have in place. We would just have to create some content, I think, to make that happen. I don't think it's going to happen right away though, because canonically, K-Leg is kind of like a lone asteroid that travels around the inner system. But I think it'll make a lot more sense once we can fly out of K-Leg into more asteroid prevalent places. But also, like, I think we want to kind of get this game loop squared away before we take another huge bite out, like asteroid mining, because there's a bunch of equipment I think specifically for that we would want to add rather than just reusing all the stuff we have here. Although you could, I'm sure, use some of these tools.
Any metal prosthetics, maybe in the far future. So there's a medical system nearer on the horizon than you might think. In fact, a lot of it is theoretically in the game already because it's brought over from Neo Scavenger. So a wound system is actually coming in relatively short order. Again, you'll have to check the roadmap because I always forget what the order is. But yeah, like I assume maybe we could put prosthetics in at that time. It seems pretty plausible, like in The Expanse or whatever, how they're always getting their arms lopped off and getting prosthetics. I don't know.
Yeah, in terms of what it means, like we'd have to kind of see when we get there, because at the very least, replacing a lost limb or eye or something like that seems pretty straightforward. We would just have to have the items and the processes for the player to use to do it. But in terms of like prosthetics that let you do things you couldn't otherwise do, like look at the game in thermal imaging or something like that, that would be a little bit harder to do. Still doable, of course, everything's doable, but it's more a question of what we're able to do with the team size we have.
Yeah, but there'll probably almost certainly be like a medical bay type thing where you can address your wounds and all that.
Well, in terms of character customization, though, I see a follow up there. Yeah, I would love for us to be able to do a little bit more character customization, and for things like the scars on your face or whatever to come in during the course of the game.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything really stopping us from making that happen. Like they're just another layer. So we could make that, or like, you know, the glasses aren't part of your look. They're something that you have to equip, and if you don't equip them, then if you're myopic, then you can't see things far. Like that kind of stuff. I would love to do. Again, I would love to do so many things. So we'll just have to see how many of those things we can tick off before we run out of steam.
Yeah, I mean the process is pretty straightforward at this point for us. When we finish a patch, we look at the roadmap, see what the next patch is, have a long discussion about like what we sort of envision that patch to be, and then make the smallest possible version of that and layer as many features on as we can before we feel like we've been working on it too long, you know? So sometimes features just get cut during that process. It's true of all video games, but yeah.
Crusoe was asking, will stations now need shifts of maintenance workers so the floors and walls don't break down to the point of making a breach and venting atmo? Eventually, I would like to do... We have something in the game called pledges that our AIs use to... It's basically like their first line of defense for things like what they're supposed to be doing, how to survive. And I think one line of defense here is everybody on a station should have a pledge, like if there's a hole in the wall, go fix it, because everybody's life is on the line. And if I was living on a station, that's what I would do. But yeah, I think also it's not out of reason to have like a janitor or a maintenance person kind of walking around at any given time, just fixing up things here and there. Because it's functionally important and it adds a little bit more life to what's going on. So it maybe wouldn't be too hard to do. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Can you pick up NPC survivors from random ships? Right now, there are not NPCs spawning on ships, but there will be, I think. We haven't talked about that in a while, have we, Dan?
Yeah, well, it hasn't come up a lot in derelicts, but I think where we left it is it makes sense for you to come across a derelict every now and then, and somebody's just set up camp in there, you know, like a squatter or somebody living in an RV that can't drive anymore. You know, there are people who are like, well, this is fine. I'll just make this work. And so like running into somebody squatting in a derelict is possible. We already have NPCs in ships that are flying around. If you were to ever dock with any one of those ships, you would find somebody on board, hopefully alive. Sometimes they're dead. And that will probably require some refinement. And that's kind of like a test case for longer range travel, because they're all just going like to and from stations around K-Leg. But eventually that same sort of stuff needs to be happening between K-Leg and like Tharsis Landing or Atlantis or those other colonies in other planets. And that means there's going to be people like in a fully functional ship, small crews are flying to and from. So I think you'll find NPCs on ships eventually, whether it be an encounter or just you've boarded a ship that has a crew on it. We do have, I see another question there, do we have RimWorld style priorities? We coincidentally do have this roster and duties sheet, which is very blatantly cribbed from RimWorld. I think we're probably going to have to tweak it a bit, because this was an okay approximation when I first put it up there, but that was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we've already discovered like the granularity of construction is not enough. Like, is the person installing, uninstalling, or maybe like you want I think Naiba was saying a scenario where they want one person to be installing walls, but they want that person to be separate from somebody who's uninstalling pieces elsewhere on the ship to be used across the ship. So it's like, how granular do we want to get with that priority system, or do we want another way of kind of portioning out who should be doing what and when? But yeah, there's some thought going into that right now, in fact.
Grim says, I'm very interested in social part of the game since I've never seen anything like that. Yeah, it's like a sort of like a design idea that a lot of people have been trying to tackle, I think, in the last 10 years or so. This idea that, like, can we turn negotiation and talking into a combat-like system? Some games have done better than others. We're struggling with it now. Sometimes it works better than others. We're also very excited by it because, one of the touchstones for this game is like Firefly. And we think about the first episode of Firefly a lot, just how much interpersonal kind of negotiation and combat happens in that first episode of just like, okay, I'm not going to do this unless you do that. And like, okay, I'm going to, this person's bullying, this person's backing down. Like, if you're going to make a game like this, you kind of have to have something like that, I
think we decided pretty early on that a show like Firefly or The Expanse or Cowboy Bebop or a film like Star Wars, it has cool stuff in it, and oftentimes that's what hooks you on it initially, or what gets you to look at it initially, like, oh, that looks like it's pretty cool. But then it's sort of the enduring character, like drama and relationships and stories of heroism. Like it's the characters really that you end up falling in love with, and a little bit the stuff, but mostly the characters. And is there any way that we can kind of recreate that even crudely in a game? So many games, I think, even really well managed to model everything else, like the mechanics of running a spaceship and flying a spaceship and the economy of space trading and all that stuff. I think those systems have all been done very well in the past. Can we fill in some of the gaps maybe on some of the other stuff that doesn't get a lot of attention? And I think when it comes to social combat in this game, it's unlikely we are going to get to the point where you can read it and it comes out like the script of a movie. Like it's not going to be that level of polish. But I think if you're willing to put a little bit of elbow grease in like interpreting the things that the characters are saying, like they're giving you kind of a skeleton of a conversation. And if you kind of imagine the flesh around that skeleton, some funny things can come out of it, or some endearing things, or just like, oh, wow, that feels really in character for that person. We've been having a pretty good time if we kind of like suspend that disbelief and like willfully interpret what they're saying as like, what would this be like if it was a movie conversation? What does that line actually mean?
Yeah. And we don't really mind the idea that like it is procedural and you can tell, and it's like that on purpose. And we want there to be emergent narrative, and we don't mind that like you have to squint a bit to like make it work as a player. We just mind when it's like really disruptive and pulls you right out of it, So if we can get close enough, we're usually pretty happy about it. Rem says, to be frank, I believe that the need meters should affect characters more. Yeah, I think we agree with that. And there should be actual problems if your character can't handle their emotional needs. Yeah, so the social combat was a way to make these bars matter more, but we are also kicking around other things like maybe fail states for when they get to zero, like something really bad happens, so you always kind of have to be managing them, That's how it is in like The Sims. Not sure where we've landed on that recently, but it's on our.
I think one of the mechanical outcomes we're picturing there is if you have crew and one of their social stats is just cratering, they will do some sort of coping thing, which usually results in them threatening to quit. and then it becomes like a negotiation between you and them about them wanting to quit, and you either letting them or not wanting them to quit. And then, that tug of war ensues, and then if you win, they stay on, but maybe there's a promise made or something. Like, I think we can mechanically hook things up to when they reach those states. And I think the thing Corey was getting to was if their states hit extreme highs or extreme lows, maybe other effects could happen just reliably at either end of those stat bars. And I still think that's a pretty cool idea. I don't know if we had an example that perfectly fit every stat, but I wouldn't say we're against it. I think we're just kind of looking for that opportunity.
Yeah, I think where we landed on it is we needed to wait till the game had more mechanics so that we could actually link those up to mechanical outcomes, Like, for example, now that we have things breaking, we could have if one of the things tanks, maybe you just, like, smack an item nearby and it breaks, right? Like, you kind of have to have more mechanics to make that idea work.
Yeah.
And as we're adding more mechanics, we might return to it. But I do agree, we want the bars to be, meaningful instead of just bar low bad, bar high good kind of a thing.
I think we've sort of seen a proto version of that in a lot of, like, we've been listening to people's frustrations with the AI conversations, because when they need something, what they do at the moment is they come and they talk to you, and that has just been getting on people's nerves a bit, because they talk too much. So it's like we have some ways for them to sort of vent their emotions, and it's about just, as the
they're acting out in the only way they know how.
Yeah, we just need to give them more ways to act out so they don't keep.
We need more verbs, damn it.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, rim tantrums, insulting sprees, murder. Yeah, that's all on the table. We definitely want. Yeah, we want there to be
variety. Like we are really aiming to have lots of interlocking systems that produce interesting stories, because I think all three of us are pretty well aligned on, we kind of want to play this game too, and we don't want to know what's going to happen. We want to be able to predict with pretty good accuracy what might happen, but we want the game to surprise us too. So
yeah, the best roguelike ecosystem games do that, including Neo Scavenger. This idea that, like, there's no way to experience all the possible experiences in Neo Scavenger because there are just too many systems combining, Like, every time I play it, it'll be like, oh man, right when I was about to run out of water, like, a cultist came up and he was carrying a bag full of a bunch of water and I had to kill him for, like, that was two systems converging just right at the right time. And if we have enough of those in this game, over time, the collisions become more interesting and varied.
Someone in the chat is asking, sorry, is concerned that did I refuel the gas? Yes, I did refuel the gas and the energy. Do not fear.
And worst case scenario, you just use your oxygen supply to limp back to port, right?
Yeah. Never go wrong. You can see the spinning background here a little bit.
Hopefully that doesn't give people too much vertigo or seasickness.
Yeah, when you're rotating now.
I've done a full 360. Although I want to go towards a derelict, actually.
We are at 1:33. I don't know what you guys were planning for today, but that's where we're at. Hour and 33 minutes.
Well, what do you think, Josh? Should we start winding down here?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if people have got their last sort of questions they want to ask,
should we give it maybe another 5 or 10 minutes for people to roll in their last few questions, and maybe give us a minute or two to think if there's anything we've meant to talk about and we missed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sounds good. I guess we can just talk about the next few weeks as we finish out this patch. The goal is to get it to you guys.
Probably a test version of it so that people can play if they want. We may do a closed beta, we may do an open beta for that, but we'll post it in Discord for sure, and maybe even on Steam announcements. So keep an eye out for that. I think we're at least a week or two before anyone outside the office gets hands on, though, just because, as you can see, there's still a bit of weirdness here and there. And I don't know. So wear and tear is kind of the big thing for this next milestone. Was there another piece in this milestone we forgot to mention? I'm trying to think.
Thing is, it's the crew controller bit. Oh, actually, there is a thing I can do. So if I go to this little room here, and then I press the caps lock key, there's going to be a hotkey for changing your character,
including on other ships, right?
Yes. Now, I think at the moment there is a little bit of a bug we've discovered with being on a different ship for somebody, and then going, and then the game basically just loses track of the main character. But eventually.
Let's go through the questions. Can you connect ship to ship to ship? Now, right now, the airlock is a very sort of crucial,
touchy subject.
It's hard to explain, but it's like all of the programming in the game is locked up in that object, sort of. So,
yeah, I think it's eventually something I want to take a crack at. I may not be able to solve this. We may not be able to solve this, but we want to at least try and let you have more than one airlock to dock with. And that goes for stations, especially. Like, to have more than one ship docked at a station would be kind of realistic, I think. And then sort of related to that, Naiba has run into a situation now that everything can break. What happens when the stuff outside your ship is broken and you can't get to it without tearing a wall open? I mean, that's been a problem, I guess, for a while, but more pronounced now. And even though we're not doing 0G because it was too much of an ask to finish in the next year, what we may try and do is hack in some kind of like near EVA pathfinding so that you can like just hedge around the outside of your ship to fix something and then hedge back in through the airlock. No promises there, but that's at least something we're looking at. Yeah, I think that answered the question.
Lord Caven says, any serious lore/world building expansion on the horizon for the next updates? I think probably
further out, yes.
Yeah, then I mean the game will be much more story robust than it is now, obviously, when it's launched. But the next one will probably be what the other port. It'll be the
I was just gonna look to see how many we've got planned out that far. I want to say like a half dozen for sure major locations, about as complex as K-Leg is what we're thinking as kind of like our target. It could be more, but where is my...
Oh, and we also have a Supernatural update coming up, and that I imagine will have a bunch of lore in it as well.
Yeah, lucky number 13 is build number 13. So that may have some of the Supernatural stuff. Across the System is after that, 14. That is the first station you can visit that requires a fusion torch and long-range travel requiring days or weeks underway. I forget if we decided what that is going to be, but there's a couple top candidates for that. I think it was Venus, wasn't it?
Venus and the orbitals around Mars, Hongdao, and some others.
Yeah. So there's that, but then overall 7, I'm looking now at the internal planning document. We have 7 major ports like that in mind. Places like Venus, Mars, Titan, Europa, Luna. And then there's a lot of kind of like connective tissue stuff that we'll probably add all along the way. Things like more items that are giving hints into kind of like the brand ecosystem of the world, like travel posters and, who makes the coffee and how does the coffee get, delivered to people. We'll probably have coffee machines that take your money and you get coffee, or, we've got tobacco and marijuana manufacturers, and there's just kind of like this, a lot of writing that we've kind of done to plan for this, but we haven't hooked that up to the game yet. If anybody wants, there's a preview. I'll post a link to that too. We have a wiki with a lot of that setting information kind of sketched out. If anybody wants to do kind of like lore diving.
Yeah, I mean the lore is done by Michael, and it's very robust and super interesting. And you can usually, when we're trying to implement some story beat, we start there where we're like, what can we pull?
What did Michael say?
Yeah, because we all like it so much.
What did we promise?
Yeah, it's a really cool document in my
I
opinion.
like those talks.
Yeah. Anybody else? I don't know if you saw, but your crewmate Christian tried to undamage something that I assume was a social attack. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds like astronauts right now.
Yeah, it should be mentioned that everything in the game is being damaged right now by a hacked line of code I added just to quickly see if it would work. And that basically means like even invisible plumbing items in the game are being damaged when they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So like the item spawners have damage on them. So we have to go through and formalize that system, and there's going to be some weirdness until we do.
So we need a separate airlock system. Yes, we do. We'll figure that out eventually. Did we miss anything else? No?
I'm sure we missed things. There's been a lot of good questions, and I've only got a fraction of them, I think. But
yeah, if people have asked questions further up in the chat, feel free to like repeat them.
Yeah, maybe we'll give it 5 more minutes here because it's 2:36 by my clock, so 2:40ish. We'll call it.
Quitting time.
Blow the whistle.
Dan's very gracious. He lets us not just work on the game, but like also live our lives. Not much. We get about 2 hours a day.
Short leashes. I think if you scroll far enough, Josh, you'll see the heads of every character you've talked to recently.
I think it's on the left if I go this way.
May or may not have to zoom out.
There's a lot of chatter that we missed about prosthetics, like facial prosthetics and stuff, which, yeah, that'd be sick.
Cosmetic prosthetics?
Yeah, and I guess you already mentioned, like, maybe if you're in a fire or something, you gain a scar. Oh, look, there's some wreckage at the Hubble. No, it's not the Hubble, but something.
I asked how you approach the wear and tear as not to make fixing stuff tedious. Well, I think part of it is we have to come up with a scale that is not annoying. Like our first attempt at it was annoying. Naiba told us right away, "Is like this is breaking too quickly." But I think part of it is also like when it breaks, if it does something interesting, that's less annoying. It's still annoying, but at least something interesting happened. And I think also if the AI can just kind of tune things up without you having to intervene all the time, and like by virtue of having a well-fed and happy crew, everything just stays working, that might be okay too. Mm-hmm. Instead of you having to like micro everybody to do it all the time. It's a good question though. Like we definitely need to balance that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think an early design decision we made to try to avoid that is like your ship can still work pretty soon after you get it in the same way that it always has been, as long as you have the right pieces in it. It just maybe doesn't work at optimal rates, and it might be a little dirty. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not like the game's constantly telling you can't play right now. It's more like,
yeah, definitely we don't want to have that.
Yeah, it's like more like you could be flying a little bit smoother right now if you spend a little bit of time over here. So
yeah, one person should be able to comfortably keep a coffin functional. Yeah, I think that's a good metric.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
if the ship's small enough, you should be able to do it yourself. You might even be able to keep something bigger alive. But how about a maintenance system where things don't break unless they are maintained, which would be a simple automatic idle? Yeah, that's actually a specific thought we had. In addition to just repairing things that are broken, it's just kind of topping up. You know, the nav station requires like a reboot every now and then, or you know, the cooling system requires the ammonia coolant to be flushed, or the scrubbers need their filters replaced. Like that kind of stuff is, if you don't do it, their efficiency might go down, but it's not like it explodes on you or something.
Yeah, and in terms of the idle action, that's what's happening right now. They're undamaging. They're pretty high up in the cruise AI right now is that they just go around and undamage stuff, which will eventually be called, you know, restore, repair, whatever.
Did we even touch on this enable AI thing? I might have been concentrating when we mentioned
Nope.
it.
No, we didn't. Maybe let's make that the last thing we talk about because it is now 2:40.
Yeah.
So it's a crude button on the bottom of the screen near the person's face, like just to the left of this log. And you can turn the AI on and off. And what that means is 100% like NPC behavior is when AI is on. They will, whatever shift they're set to, if they're in the work shift, they'll go and do any tasks that you've assigned through the PDA across the ship or any docked ship. And then they will do any tasks that they've assigned, that you've personally assigned to them through right-clicking on things. And then if they are in free time mode or sleep mode and none of that work applies, then they'll just scroll through their socials, talk to people, or go to bed. If you disable AI, which is currently the case, they'll just stand there. Unless you right-click on something and tell them personally to do it or tell them to walk somewhere. So they won't run off on you. They won't do anything. It's a good way to kind of keep them staying put, or if you just want to drive them around manually. I think that's the biggest difference with that. We may end up we've talked about making it a little more granular, like with stances. I don't know yet if we still want to do that. Like if we can come up with a on-off switch that's good enough, maybe that's fine. But we may need to be like, only do these things, but don't do these other things, except for that thing. You know, it could be a little bit more granular. Was that about it as far as the button, or could you guys think of anything else?
No, I mean, just the reason we did it is because we think some players might just want to be tabbing in between and manually controlling, while others would rather the AI sort it out. And we just...
It is worth mentioning, like airlocks and AI are an important combination. So if you tell them to walk through an airlock manually, they will, no matter what, helmet or none. But if you don't tell them to, and they're on like automatic AI mode, they won't do that. They'll do whatever you've told them to in the rules, as far as, are you allowed to leave the ship? Are you allowed to open an airlock that has a pressure difference? Even then, if their AI is on, they won't go through the door without a helmet, because they want to keep themselves alive. But if you manually tell them to with the AI off, they'll do anything.
Maybe last question here. Dad tries to, first of all, says repair, scavenge, rest stances would be useful. Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Like a mode you're in, or something like that.
And then 64, 128, 256 speed for long voyages.
Yes, but probably not like that. I think 16x is already pushing the limits of what the simulation can handle right now. And probably the next step beyond that is fade to black, come back when something interesting happens.
Right.
So on a long voyage, you might hit the super fast forward button, it fades to black and it says 4 hours later, and then you're in the middle of an argument with a crew member, or like something shows up on the scopes. Because there's no need for you to sit through 4 hours if you don't want to. The trouble is what happens during that 4 hours. Like if you want specific things to happen, you'll probably have to play through those 4 hours. But if you're fast forwarding beyond 16x, you're probably not micro controlling much at all. So I guess we're going to have to play around with that. Like it might be kind of like sleeping in The Witcher or something, where you set an alarm for an hour from now or something. Could be that too. But I think that's kind of the direction we'll be going with super fast forward.
Cool. All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. This was awesome. And there's a lot of people throughout, which is super fun.
This feels like a good chat. It felt like a pretty solid audience and lots of good questions today.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of people. I think it was good to get the message out there early and like across a lot of the platforms, which is something we didn't necessarily do before. We sort of picked 1 or 2 platforms and told people like the day before or the day of.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, we are going to be, as we said, announcing the beta for this relatively soonish, and then launching shortly after. And then we'll do another stream. We're trying to do 1 per patch, but it might end up being 1 every 2 patches. I don't know. But yeah, for now, see you guys later.
Yeah. Thanks all for joining us, and we'll talk to you all soon.